Hi, this is Joe Chambers. Welcome to Musicians Hall of Fame Backstage the Vault Series. Today's clip comes from a 2004 interview I did with my friend Steve Wariner. Steve grew up, and his family grew up listening to Chet Atkins, and he talks about how, ironically, the person that ended up signing him to his record contract and producing him and becoming almost like his second dad was Chet Atkins. Hope you enjoy it. If you do, be sure to hit like, subscribe, and notification bell so you don't miss any of our new content. Once again, the great Steve Wariner. Steve Wariner, my friend.
Let's talk, Joe.
Okay. Was there a particular artist outside your dad that spurred you on?
Oh, there's no question. I mean, I fell in love with Chet Atkins. Merle Travis and Chet Atkins were the two. My dad had all their albums, and I remember, as far back as I can remember in my mind, I remember sitting reading all the Chet albums. Mm-hmm. There's not a time that I don't remember sitting in my life looking at Chet's albums and taking the LPs out and putting the nickel on the arm of, when I put the player on and my dad's hi-fi, stereo system or whatever. And he had all of his albums, and I could not wait for the new Chet stuff to come. I was just enthralled, with that. And it's so ironic and crazy as if you fast forward, which I know we'll talk about later, but if you fast forward, and that's what was so rewarding to not only me but to my father, because of having that kind of history and love of and respect of Chet Atkins, to fast forward now, and here I am being quote unquote discovered by Chet Atkins, and he was my first producer and signed me to my first record deal. And I mean, it was just honestly, for a young kid, that's what I always say to young players. I always tell them, I say, dream as big as you want to dream, because I'm telling you, I'm a young, very, very poor little kid from Indiana that, I dreamed very big, and I'm just amazed that my dreams came true. Here I am in the studio working with Chet Atkins and recording with so many great people and doing what I've done. I mean, I'm truly blessed and grateful. And
I mean, look at Chet's background.
I know it.
And
and I think that's a lot of the appeal. Probably my dad saw this too, aside from his playing. There was always that intangible thing about Chet that people loved, aside from his playing. Everybody knew that and loved that and respected it. But like in our case, there was a lot of parallels with the way my dad was raised, and myself in a lot of respects, to the way Chet was raised. Very humble beginnings. I know Chet had a rocky childhood and those sort of things. Chet was always like, if I had a second father, I mean, he would have been as close as you could get for me to be. He gave me, and I've heard other people say that too. He just, they broke the mold on him. I mean, and I went to his home place after he passed away. I never had been there. He invited me a couple times to go with him when he went to visit his mother way back, and I just never worked out. But I went to his home place after he passed away, and it moved me so much to see the humble beginnings. And again, you can achieve what you want to achieve. It's what you want to put into it work-wise, because he certainly put the dedication. He never quit. He never quit learning. He never quit wanting to learn. And I heard him say that. He goes, "You never too old to learn a new lick or work up a new song." Or he said, and he never lost that love and that passion for it.
Went up to his office with the president of Epiphone Guitars. Now, of course, he already had the Gibson line, and so we go up there, and he brings them the two new guitars from a new factory that was making the overseas version of SSTs and so forth. Right. And they had some new pickups in them. So he gave Chet the guitar, and instead of Chet taking a little foreign guitar sitting in the corner and saying, well, thanks a lot or something.
Most people would.
He jumped up, ran back and plugged it in, and was in another world.
Oh,
I was there with him.
Sure.
But he wasn't. But I didn't exist to him at the moment. He was listening to that guitar.
Exactly.
And I don't know.
Yeah, that's passion. That's all it is. I can't tell you the times I've gone up to his office and he would say, "Hey, listen to this old song. I found this thing of this old. It might be an old blues, old black blues guy from the '20s, or a new Django thing." Or he goes, "Oh, listen to this. I just rediscovered this," or whatever. And he would always have something that he was like, "Oh, you got to hear this," or a guitar. "You got to try this." I had a call one day from Chet. I was up in Kentucky at my mom and dad's, and I swear I thought it was my brother Kenny, who always played me jokes, on me. And he goes, "Yeah, this is Chet Atkins calling for Steve Wariner." And I go, "Yeah, right, Kenny, get out of here." I thought it was him playing a trick on me, and it was Chet, and he wanted to meet with me. So, and that's what led up to a contract.
When did you realize it was Chet?
Well, it didn't take long because then he goes, no, he started backpedaling. I go, shut up, Kenny, And
No, you didn't.
I did. I was started going, get the hell, I was saying all kinds of stuff. And then he goes, he kind of chuckled. And when he chuckled, I knew it was Chet. And then he goes, no, this is Chet Atkins, really. And I went, oh, God, it is, And at that point, Chet said, well, I'd love to meet with you sometime when you're back down this way. And so when I went down, next time I went down, we set up a meeting and we went to lunch. And that led to all the stuff that happened, the contract. And he handed me a guitar and he said, play me something. And I was, and he wanted me, he said, I hear you play some thumb style stuff. I said, yeah, I do a little bit, I tried to. And so he said, well, play something. And my hands were shaking so bad I couldn't even play. I remember I fumbled around on something, and I remember him going, he was kind of like just shaking his head going, yeah, that's cool, not bad. He didn't say that, but I remember he's kind of like going, yeah, And so anyway, long story, it led up to a couple of meetings in his office, and I was very aggressive with it, to be honest with you. I was calling him, when I was in town, I would call him and go by his office, and we were hit it off real well, and that led up to a contract. And so he started talking about contracts one day, and I remember I felt like it was getting close, Originally, he started talking about him not producing. He said, well, if this thing works out, he goes, I'm really stepping away from producing. He goes, I'm really wanting to free up some time and not be so busy. He goes, I'm really not wanting to produce. And I remember as a knucklehead kid, I remember saying, well, no, I want you to produce me. I was like, looking back on it now, I'm thinking, I was pretty bold to just come out and say it, but I really meant it. He asked me point blank one day, we started talking contracts, and he asked me one day, looked at me in the eye, and I never had even thought about this. This is the player mentality coming out, I guess, in me, but he looked at me and he said, do you want to be a star? And I remember thinking, I better answer yes, because that's the answer he wants me to say. They're not going to invest in somebody that says no. And I truly had not really thought about that aspect of it. I knew I wanted to make records and be an artist, yes, but as far as actually being a star, it never crossed my mind, that part of it. So I answered yes. And so he said, well, let me see if I can get some papers drawn up from New York. And so the wheels were rolling in motion. So he offered me a job. He said, why don't you go? He says, I'm not doing a lot of dates, but I'm doing a few. Why don't you go out and play some dates with us and play bass? And Paul, he already had some great, obviously they had the guitar areas covered. So I went out and played bass. And and they were all fly dates, and they were with symphonies, and we went to Europe and stuff, and played great gigs. And I was with him for, up until I had my first hit. My first hit was in '79, so it was from '70. It was a couple years there. Chet told the story about one time Waylon was in the office playing on one of his guitars, and it was a Ramirez, a beautiful. Chet said an expensive, beautiful classical guitar, and he said, Waylon said, can I borrow this thing for a while, Chet? And he goes, yeah, no problem, And he said, Chet was laughing telling this, and he said about a month later, Waylon came back in Chet's office and said, I brought that gut string back for you. And Waylon left, and he said, Chet got it out, and he said, it was just beat to hell. He said, I don't know what Waylon did to it, but it's just banged up, and he said he really got some use out of that thing.
Well, Waylon's used to having leather wrapped around his guitar.
He had leather on his tail. We were on a plane. We had done a symphony show. We were on our way back. The plane took off, and Chet, as he usually would do, we'd level off, and he would kick his seat back and read the paper. Put his glasses on and read the paper. And that's no different this time. We got it leveled off, and he was doing that. And we were flying along, and the pilot come on, and in so many words, I don't know how he said it, but in a kind, diplomatic way, he told us that there was a bomb on the plane. I forget how he said it, a substance or whatever. But I remember that everybody was panicked. The pilot, I remember the pilot said, we're going to take this seriously, but we're thinking it might have something to do with the guy that was turned away at the gate, just a prank call. But we're going to take it very seriously. We're going to make an emergency landing in Raleigh, which we were close to. And so I remember everybody on the plane just not pandemonium, but just you could tell there was a lot of fear and panic on everybody's faces. It got deathly quiet. And so I was kind of looking around. I was scared to death, I mean, anyway, too. And it was so quiet. And I could tell we were starting to descend. And I'd look over at Chet, and he was just turning the page. He's just, looking at the paper. Didn't like nothing had happened.
Did he ever say anything?
No, he never said a word. And everybody else was panicked, and he was just as typical Chet, just whatever.
What's what you got some more Chet stories that are?
I remember one of the funniest things he did to me one time was that we were in Alaska. I never forget, it was in Alaska, and we were playing a show, Anchorage. And we're playing, and I'm smiling while I'm doing the show, and Chet's playing, and he throws a solo over to Tony Migliore, who's a great piano player, plays piano. He's playing a solo, and Chet kind of saunters over to me and gets right beside me, and I'm playing, whatever, playing bass, and Chet bends over real close to my ear, and he goes, "Has anybody ever told you you're the greatest bass player in the world?" And he's looking around, and he says that, and I go, dun, dun, and I go, "No," and he kind of smiled, his crooked smile, how he did, and he goes, "Have you ever wondered why?" And then he walks back over, and he kind of just smiles, like a "You dog, you," just that kind of stuff. He was just great,
You've won 2 Grammys?
Yeah, actually, I've got 2 Grammys, nominated several times, but actually I've received 2 Grammys. But I love to tell this story. I've actually got 3 Grammys, and there's an interesting story. Much to Naris's chagrin, they weren't real pleased with the way this happened. But when I did an album called No More Mr. Nice Guy, I was so thrilled when it came out. It was all guitar, all instrumental, and I was also really thrilled when one of our songs on the album was nominated for a Grammy. It was called The Brickyard Boogie. I was okay with it until I found out that I was going up against my good buddy Chet Atkins. He had a song nominated for a Grammy too. So I went, "Oh man, who's gonna win this Grammy?" So as it turned out, we said, "Well, let's go to New York and have fun anyway." And so right before we left to go up there, I got a message from Chet on my Codaphone that said, "Steve, this is Chester. I'm voting for you for the Grammys. I'm hoping you win. I'm voting for you." And that's all he said. He hung up. So we go up to the Grammys and the show and everything, and of course the country stuff's pre-telecast. So Chet wins the Grammy. I knew he would, and he should. Well, I thought, I'm gonna call Chet and tell him congratulations, So I call him at a payphone at this little Chinese restaurant. Codaphone picks up, one of those little guy voices. "Please leave a message. So and so is not home, So I leave Chet a message, and they're not even home. He was not even watching it. So I found out later they went out to eat. He didn't even watch the show. So I leave congratulations. Now fast forward about a week, I get back home, and at this time Chet's playing every Monday night at the Cafe Milano. It's a club downtown Nashville. He played just for kicks, go down and play. So I get a message when I get home about a week later. Karen gets a message. I come home one day, and Karen says, "Chet called." "Oh, really? How's he doing?" "Okay. He said you have to come down tomorrow night. It's Cafe Milano." "Okay, I'll try to." "No," he said, "you can't try. You got to make it." So I go down there. Long story short, he gets me up in the middle of his show. He says, "Folks, I won a Grammy last week," and everybody claps. And he goes, "But there's a guy in the audience that I want to get up." And I'm not kidding you. He says this on stage. He goes, "There's a guy in the audience that should have won a Grammy, and he didn't. He should have won it that night, and he's here tonight, and I want him to get up with me. Steve Wariner." So I get up and clapping and stuff. I get up, and so I play a song with Chet, and he says, "Steve, he says, I got something for you. You should have won a Grammy last week instead of me." And he reaches back behind his amp, and he's got a Grammy that he had taken the plaque off, and it says "on loan." He says, "A Grammy awarded to Steve Wariner on loan from Chet Atkins." And so he went to the trouble to put a little tag on it. So I guess you're not supposed to give those away, is what it is. So he gives me this Grammy, and I can't believe it, And I noticed there's a camera crew there and some photographers, and they're taking pictures and stuff. And then so also he gives me a plaque that makes me and I got it hanging up in my studio here in the hallway. He also made me, there's only 5 people that he made honorary CGPs. It's either certified guitar pickers or country guitar picker. I don't know.
Certified guitar player.
Yeah, I've heard it both ways, but I think certified guitar player. So anyway, he made me an honorary CGP that night and gave me a plaque. So I won a Grammy.
That's crazy.
And that was the night. And so anyway, in the papers, someone from Naris, actually on the West Coast, actually contacted Chet's office and said, you're going to have to give this, you're going to have to get that Grammy back because you can't give those away. You know, and so Chet, it was in the paper, in the column, in the gossip column, there's a thing in the paper, Chet quoting saying, this is right after the OJ trial. Chet's actually quoted as saying, let them try to come and take that Grammy away. I'll hire Johnny Cochran, and they'll never hear the end of it if they want to come and try to take it. So isn't that hilarious?
That's great. That's so Chet.
So I got 3 Grammys sitting in the office, in this library in the house.
Which one's your favorite?
Oh, the Chet one. Are you kidding me? That's the one that means the most. And the other ones are wonderful too, of course.
That's a one of a kind.
Oh yeah, that's the only one from him. You know.
That's.
Oh, by
so
the way,
great.
on his Codaphone message when he said, I'm voting for you, he said, I forgot to say this, he goes, oh, by the way, I've already got 16 Grammys, so what's one more, you know? So.
Really.